City Talk, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all of you and your families. We are honored today to have as guest Mayor Dave Hanneman, the mayor of Sun Prairie, finishing up his first term as mayor. Dave Hanneman will be running for re-election in the election upcoming this April. Dave, welcome to City Talk.
Don, welcome. I appreciate the invitation.
Nice
it allows
to see you
me
again.
the opportunity to talk about something that's extremely near and dear to my heart and to yours, I know, that being the city of Sun Prairie, and to provide the residents of the community some updates and perhaps answer some questions that they have in their minds.
Well, good. Dave, before we get into some specific issues about what's going on in Sun Prairie, why don't you assess your first term as mayor, and how has that experience differed from the expectations you had prior to running and when for mayor?
Well, and I know you don't like one-word answers, so I will give you one, but and then I'll expound a little bit. Okay. In response to the first part of your question, very busy. The job is extremely busy. And as mayor, it falls a little differently than being part of the city council or part of the county board or any of those agencies where you're part of the legislative branch. The mayor, of course, is the executive branch, and makes it quite a bit different in the operations, the day-to-day operation, the hands-on. The community, of course, is growing, and that's one of the things that I want to talk about this afternoon. And it is requiring a great amount of time for anyone stepping into this job to, they can put in as much time or as little time on it and become involved. I have chosen, of course, to become extremely involved in basically all aspects of this city's government.
So the difference in your 10-year experience as an alderman, your experience in the Dane County Board, and your experience in mayor is what? The executive responsibilities, which you didn't have before on a day-to-day basis. How do the experiences differ?
Well, of course, the legislative branch, such as the city council, for the most part, are the lawmakers. As an executive branch, of course, you are head of the operation, so to speak. But as mayor, I have the benefit, the opportunity to look at the decisions that are made and have an almost instantaneous response as to whether they're good decisions or bad decisions. It's been said many times that if you can satisfy about 51% of the people, you're doing a good job. I hope my record is a little bit better than that. But the mayor, of course, as I said, can be as involved as they wish to be. I wish to be involved because there's so much happening here in this community. City council representatives serving on committees are making a wide variety of decisions of issues that have been brought before them by staff, by people within the community. And as mayor, I sit in on those meetings as well, on the issues, many of the issues that are brought before the city council. The council, of course, reflects upon those questions, resolutions, ordinances, and makes a legislative decision to enact them or not to enact them. As mayor, of course, I have not exercised it yet, a certain amount of veto power, because we've got a good city council in place that really takes the community interest to heart and becomes involved in the total operations of the city. I try to work closely with all of the department heads, from maintenance to public works, finance, and all the way through the operation.
You know, you make a good point that I'm sure not some people probably aren't clear on. The mayor votes rarely, if ever.
Correct.
So you might want to tell people when you vote, if ever, and what the jurisdictional authority of the mayor is, since he's not voting on a week-to-week basis like members of the city council are.
Well, on the various committees, which the mayor does appoint the various aldermen to the standing committees, such as personnel, finance, public works, and so forth. These are committees that, prior to issues coming before the city council, are generally addressed at these type of committees. And for the most part, they're 5-member committees. They address the issues first. The then in line would be, for most of the time, brought to committee of the whole, where all of the council representatives have a voice vote on the specific issue. Passage of legislation, or whatever the instance may be, at a committee of the whole generally then goes to city council. At this point in time, I have no vote. I sit into the meetings, I observe, I listen, and from time to time I put in my 2 cents worth. But when it goes to the city council, and of course I more or less I sit there and I conduct the meeting and hopefully make sure that it runs fairly smooth. The only time that I as mayor get to vote on these issues if the council were to end up in a 4-4 tie.
Right.
And that's the time, and I think I've had one in the 2 years, almost 2 years in office, to be a tiebreaker. That's not true with Planning Commission. The City Planning Commission I chair as mayor, and I do have a voice vote on the Planning Commission. However, when those actions then are brought before the council and they are acted upon, listening to the recommendations of Planning Council, Planning Commission, and various other entities, I have no voice vote again at that time.
When you go back to the same role as being mayor again, if the council were split 4-4, do you reserve the right then to vote to break the tie again?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Very definitely.
What other units of government have you worked with over the past 2 years? And in this era of more cooperation and joint ventures, give us some examples of how those relationships have benefited Sun Prairie.
Well, in my 2 decades now of serving in elective office, I've used the experience.
Not to stop you once, but actually it's more than 2 decades, because you did have one term as an alderman back in the 60s
Late
or
60s,
70s.
late 60s. Yeah. But
I know you didn't want me to bring that up, but
no, I think that's rather important, because perhaps it does adds somewhat, perhaps, some credibility. But no, I've had the opportunity, of course, to work with other municipalities and townships, state government, federal government, and many aspects in the federal government over these time frames. So
give us an example of your inner workings with somebody from each level of government. Let's start with municipalities. How do you and Dave Cheslevich and the other mayors get
the other
along?
Mayor Dave?
Right.
All right, the other Mayor Dave. We do meet occasionally, not on a regular basis. Had an opportunity, our last meeting was, oh gosh, I'm going to say about 2 months ago. We had breakfast together. We talked about a number of issues, everything from our paramedic service that we've gone to and become a very integral part of Dane County service in the northwestern section of Dane County, how we intermingle with the city of Madison as well. Fire departments, Madison, of course, is building a new fire department on the east side as well, and they were looking to see whether or not there could be some city benefit in that regard. We talked about transit, which has been an issue over time. I said that Sun Prairie certainly is open to looking at transit communication between the city of Madison and Sun Prairie, but that I was not receptive to paying the debt that the Metro service has incurred to Madison, but I said we would look at paying our fair share if that were to work out well.
Transit, I presume, means bus service.
The bus service, yes.
Right, thank you.
We talked a little bit about the train service. I told him I was not necessarily in on looking at an inter-trolley system, which is the other Mayor Dave's interest at this point is to have Madison trolley system. Not to say that somewhere down the road, for tourism, things of that nature, a little trolley system within the city of Sun Prairie might be a very beneficial offering. But no, we have a very open relationship between the city of Madison and Sun Prairie. It's not an overwhelming, we'll go along with whatever you want, but there is an understanding there that the two municipalities have to work hand in hand, because Madison does need Sun Prairie as much as we need Madison in our periphery. It has worked out well. I'm going to jump to the federal first, and then I'll come back to the county.
Okay.
For the almost 8 years that I spent on the Dane County Board, I had the opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. as part of the NACO, or National Association of Counties Steering Committee, where the last term that I was on, I served as chairman for the Juvenile Justice Steering Committee, and it afforded me the opportunity to go in each spring to the legislative conference, to meet with representatives from not only Wisconsin but other states at the assembly level or at the senatorial level, which has served me very well in capacity of mayor, because I've continued my trips into Washington for various reasons. The primary one is, of course, looking at the reconstruction of our wastewater treatment plant. We have a problem that we have failed technology. It's operational. I don't want people to get upset, but we are looking to rebuild, and that's going to cost a lot of money. We're looking at between $18 million on a phase-in program to up to $26 million over time. So one of the things that I was and have been involved in Washington is meeting with representatives and congressional leaders to explain our plight and to look for grant services. I met with Tammy Baldwin, the representative of the 2nd District here, and she would defend our cause, champion it, if you will. And then I spoke with Mark Green from the Appleton area, so I could get a balance of conservative Republican and the Democratic leadership. Tammy was able to come through with about $250,000 and an initial. And I had the opportunity to speak with Senator Herb Kohl on a couple different occasions. And I found out about a month ago that overall the first year Sun Prairie will be receiving $750,000 toward the grant. But this is something that, and I've expressed this to them, this is a project that I'm looking for dollars for the community over the next 2, 3, 3.5 years. And I'm looking for minimum of $3.5 to $5 million of federal grant monies. The way that this came about, when the plant was rebuilt, we used supposedly the best technology of the day. The EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, after we started having problems, said they were wrong. And if they had any money in the budget, they would fund the new plant completely. That in itself has helped us generate some initial dollars. But again, I want to reassure the people, the plant is operational, it's working fine, but it needs to be replaced. So I will continue working through the people that I have learned, the networking that I've learned in Washington, as well as here in our own state capital, dealing with various agencies. One that of course comes to mind is Department of Transportation. And that's been pretty much an ongoing based upon the expansion of Highway 151 and the West Side development, which I'll get into a little bit later. In fact, I just met with them again yesterday morning at about 8:30, and ironing out some last-minute things on that basis. But
How are you and Kathleen Falk getting along?
Kathleen and I, well, we're not total adversaries. Kathleen and I are not necessarily of the same thought and idea. I certainly go along with her thinking of land preservation, of quality growth, good responsible planning growth, and but I don't necessarily agree with many of the objectives that Dane County has brought forth.
Speaking of Dane County, isn't there some at least preliminary discussions with the county and the city working on a new public works facility that would combine the county facility, which now exists along Highway N at the entry to the city? And
Right on the east side of Sun Prairie,
Right.
the county barn, so to speak, or the facilities there, they have some really some high priority real estate there, and for that type of an operation being placed in our gateway is not the best use of the land. And I approached Ms. Falk, it's over a year ago now, that perhaps one of the ways that we should explore working together through cooperative measures was to consider incorporating the county municipal mechanics building, whatever down there, the county area, within our own public works facility, and explain to the county officials that this way we would be able to provide one fueling service, one salt shed, one this, that, and the other thing, and be dollar savings for both governmental entities. To my knowledge at this point, it is on the back burner. It isn't dead. I don't want to let it die, but unfortunately, government in any capacity moves slow. That's probably the most frustrating thing that there is, unlike public sector. But decisions within government have to go through many bodies and before a decision is made. But hopefully that in itself will continue along those lines.
Is the city prepared to build a facility, a new facility on its own if the county opts to take a pass?
We're looking at that, and that's part of the economic budgeting system and part of the capital improvement plan. One of the things that we're touching upon so many things, and I'll be very happy to get more into depth on, but the budgeting process, one of the aspects there is the capital improvement plans. For any community, it's an extremely important situation that we look ahead to what the needs are going to be into the future and try to be physically and financially responsible to the taxpayers, to setting dollars aside to cover costs of facilities that we'll be needing in the future. That type of facility is one of them that is on the board, and we are setting dollars aside for.
For those who have been here for more than 10 years, they're going to say, wait a minute, Mayor Hanneman, I think we've been down this road. Didn't we just build a new public works facility less than 10 years ago, and now you're talking about doing it again?
Absolutely.
What's the reason behind that thought?
Well, again, if I may defer the answer to that question to a little bit later in this this interview, I
Okay.
think we can address that.
Okay, fair enough. When you ran for mayor 2 years ago, your platform was based largely on fiscal responsibility. Do you believe you've lived up to your constituents' expectations in that area, and why? And also, what further areas can be explored to help mitigate the impact of property taxes?
Well, yes, I do. I do think I have lived up to the challenges that I tried to set forth in running for this position. Fiscal responsibility within the community and government, and especially in a growing community such as we have. The mill rate, taxable mill rate, for the past 2 years has dropped. This year it went down about 7.5%, and people are going to say, hey, wait a minute, I saw a tax increase anyway. So did I. My taxes went up. First and foremost, without trying to make any excuses, but then to give an explanation, please bear in mind on your tax bill that there are 5 taxing entities that share the tax bill. We happen to be the collector of the initial taxes. Yes. The state, the county, TC, school district, and the city of Sun Prairie. The levy has gone up. The assessed value has gone up in everybody's homes. This is true in Dane County, but mostly true here in Sun Prairie as well. A home that you bought 10 years ago for whatever the dollar amount has escalated, probably been your greatest investment, capital investment of growth, because of the just the growth within Dane County and the growth within Sun Prairie. I noticed on the monitor for the preview, it showed a picture of our population, 19,700 and
I think
something.
that's a little outdated.
Yeah, we're at basically about 24,000 people right now, and growing, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But you can be, I suppose I could say, yes, I could lower the tax and make sure that the tax bill didn't go up, but is that the most prudent thing to do at this point? One of the things that I addressed was looking at capital improvements, trying to plan for the future and set some dollars aside, so when these bills come due, we're not having to bond for everything and borrow money for everything, so that we're setting some dollars aside. The other way is to look at cutting services, and that's what I certainly do not want to do. We have a fantastic community here, and the services that people are receiving should be of the highest level, and I think that's been demonstrated with the going with our emergency medical service, from IV techs to now full paramedic service. You can't put a price on an individual's life, and with paramedic service, we don't have to stop a transportation of a patient going into the hospital in Madison. At the border of Madison, transfer drivers and use Madison paramedics to complete the run. Time is of the essence in these things and can't be measured by dollars. I think we have been financially responsible, which goes into the situation. It's been a hands-on job. I sit in on all of the budget hearings with department heads, and we can go into that as well, and how that process has evolved. In the past, it was not quite as regimented, but again, I'm just trying to do an overview, and you can pick from this, and we'll talk in the future.
Dave, tell me, in light of the fact that the city's embarked on what's no longer an expansion of the sewer plant, but a rebuilding of the sewer plant. The city's embarked, as we'll get into it later, into rebuilding of Highway 151 in partnership with the state, and rebuilding of Highway C, and in numerous other public service ventures in the community. In addition to, on the other side of the table, we have the school board embarking on building a new elementary school. In the near horizon, going to build either 1 or 2 new high schools and a new middle school and more elementary schools. In light of that, how is the Sun Prairie taxpayer supposed to stay above water with this level of services that we all seem to be so proud of?
One very not so simple answer, but one very crucial answer evolves from what else I want to talk about today. Some of the controlled growth within the community, and that growth probably should be, and in my estimation is being handled, and that is high quality retail and commercial growth.
Okay.
That doesn't add children to the school district,
But adds money to the tax.
adds good money to the tax base, and more importantly, it adds good quality jobs.
Okay, fair enough. Speaking of taxes and what you started to allude to, you've played a significant role in the budget process the past 2 years. Describe the role that you've played and why you've chosen to participate in a more hands-on basis than what your predecessors did.
Well, the role that I play, and I've been involved in now for 2 budgets, is working with staff, the city administrator, Pat Cannon, assistant city administrator, Margaret Powers, and of course can't forget our esteemed finance officer, and Bill does a fantastic job there, Bill Burns. We will interview, first and foremost, we get every department budget. And independently, each of us goes through the department budgets prior to sitting down with the department head. And so that we've got specifics in mind, each of us, for questions and comments based upon their budget, how it's been prioritized, and I do request that they prioritize items. And after sitting with the department heads, the 4 of us, the administrator, assistant administrator, and finance director, will sit down, but again independently first, and we will rate on our own and prioritize the budget items. Then we jointly get together, see if there's a mutual meeting of the minds on high priorities, working it through on that basis, and eliminating or putting a certain items or rung of the ladder, so to speak, and then presenting it back to the department head. And that's done with each and every department. That's an oversimplification, but for sake of time. And then they get one more kick at the cat with us before it goes to the city council. Then, of course, the city council, I will address them as I have here with a draft talking about the budget and explaining to the city council the basis that I'm looking for in the budget, and trying to give some direction and some guidelines as to my thoughts. And then they have the kick at the cat. They can ask department heads to come in, explain their wants and priorities, and they can make changes in the budget if they see so fit. But there were very little changes in the budget this year again, and it's a program that I think runs very smooth. In the past, and again, as you well know, with your time served on the city council, far too often, and each of the council representatives are, of course, have other jobs, and council representatives don't have the time to involve themselves that they'd like to, because of their commitments not only to jobs and family. But in the past, a lot of the responsibility was, well, let staff do it. And staff would put together a budget based upon the criteria that was set forth by the department heads, make a presentation back to the city council, and then there was an arduous process of having the department heads come in, explain their positions, and actually actually ply upon the sympathy in many instances of the city council as to why the need was there for a specific item. And I didn't feel at that time, and I still don't, that that is the way that a community or a business should run any budgeting controls. And that's why I've elected to go to the system that I've become involved in.
So you're not unhappy with the budget changes that were...
No, they were very, very minute changes. It didn't amount to, oh, I'm trying to think, maybe $20,000 or $25,000 in the budget.
$15 million budget?
$16 million budget. That it didn't even take up a decimal point.
Before we get off the subject of the budget for a minute, you are in close contact with people at the state level. Do you think, and especially in the Republican legislature, do you think there's any realistic chance of some form of TABOR or the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights passing this year in the Assembly? Or I should say in the legislature, the Assembly and the Senate.
Well, I just heard yesterday, and I have not seen a copy of it, that the newest draft of the new TABOR law was just released. I haven't seen it. For those that may not know about TABOR, it's a tax reform bill to cap spending, primarily for municipalities and so on. As a taxpayer, on the surface, it sounds fantastic. We'd all like to pay no more taxes than what we absolutely need to. Looking at it from the position of mayor and an elected official in this community, it has other ramifications as well. With the growth patterns that we have and good quality controlled growth, it is going to have, or could very definitely have, an adverse effect on this community and the community's ability to bring forth some of the things that I talked about earlier, good quality retail commercial growth that would benefit not only the city of Sun Prairie, but Dane County as well. It's a bill and part of legislation that I think really needs to be fine-tuned. Whether or not it'll pass, I don't know. I can't read the minds of the state representatives on either side of the bench on that one.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know, have you seen the budget proposals from the various entities of government this year? It seems to me like the level of government crying the loudest about tax increases is the agency in government which had the highest level of increase in spending this year. Isn't that a little ironic?
Perhaps, I think you can. That's a good.
Perhaps
good
ironic
word.
is too
Well,
nice of a word.
Well, it's
maybe
it's a nice.
disingenuous is better.
It's politically correct. Let's put it that way.
Now let's talk about some of the topics involved in the city's west side growth, which you've been alluding to, which should start to become a reality in 2005. First.
Now, let me, before you get into questions, let me, for the sake of the viewers out here, give a recap as to the West Side Development Program.
Fair enough.
And I'll move over here to this first board, if I might.
Why don't you synopsize the whole West Side plan and how it all got started and where we are now, Dave, too, while you're
Well,
doing that.
all right. The West Side Development Plan was started, about 3 years ago, about a year prior to my coming into office. And it was, that time, it was the plan was given to the bidder named RTKL from Dallas, Texas, at a cost of $300,000. The development plan that many and most of you folks have seen in time has been developed in this regard. And what we're looking at here is Thompson Road, Highway 151, Highway 19, going out to County Trunk C and down, This is Windham Hills, that's already in existence. Here is Providence, which is nearing completion off of north of Hepker Road. Of course, on this side of Highway 151 is Smith's Crossing, which is now also into effect. Highway 151 at this point in time, and that's one of the things I talked about to DOT, with DOT yesterday. Of course, this is going to 6 lanes of traffic from the American Parkway on up to just past Main Street. There will be new construction here. The County Trunk C, as we know it today, will be eliminated. That crossing will be gone. County Trunk C will be realigned to connect with Reiner Road. Reiner will be changed just slightly, and then there will be off and on ramps at that point. So you can see how this West Side Development Plan brings the city together. Our expansion up here to Thompson Road and north of Windsor, and the outlying areas of Windham Hills and throughout here. This is the one that they've seen mostly done. This is the more current and will give them perhaps a little better vision as to what's currently happening. Again, Highway 151, 6 lanes. Main Street extended over. This is the Ratman Road area. County Trunk C, change, interchange, going down Reiner Road, the crossing, O'Keefe Avenue extended, and so on. The site of the new YMCA down in this area. You're going to see some circles and some odd-looking areas here. This construction will start this spring on the development of and the expansion of Main Street to the west. At Thompson Road, you're going to see a roundabout. Thompson Road extended. Here you see a crossing over Highway 151. On schedule at this point in time is for 2008, maybe a bit extended past that depending upon cash flow. Main Street extended, you will see another roundabout. And then as we go to Main and C, you're going to see a much larger roundabout. Roundabouts, instead of stoplights, have a good continuous flow of traffic, unimpeded. In this quadrant, the northeast quadrant of this roundabout, is the future home for our new West Side Safety Center, which will house initially fire department, additional, and EMS paramedic service. You're going to see here number of stoplights. There's stoplights going to be on each of the ramps from 151 and then on up into Hepker Road realigned. Following out to Hepker to Ratman will be one, and Main Street and Ratman, this extension will be in the future. So that gives an overview of how the community is now brought together by this West Side Development Plan. And I talked about one important criteria here, and that is the need for this community to have good, high-quality retail and commercial development. And this is one of the areas and one of the aspects down through the area here and along parts of Main Street to help develop that, as well as the areas along Highway 19 up through this area and some of County Trunk C.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. Now that we set the stage for the West Side Plan and its future over the next 5, 6, 7 years, let's talk about
hopefully
specifics.
not that long. We're going to see groundbreaking spring.
Right. First, let's talk about Woodman's. Is Woodman's still in the city's future, and have the design and size concerns previously expressed been worked out yet?
First part of the question, is Woodman's still in the mix? Yes. They are a property owner in the West Side Development area. As far as the designs and that have not been brought forth, as soon as they are, they'll be addressed and handled. But they are a major factor in the growth of the commercial I look at a business such as that being the anchor, bringing traffic, bringing customers, which will bring other good quality retail commercial development.
West Side commercial development other than Woodman's. Have the city's long-standing differences with Connery and Fedler, the developers of a significant part of the West Side neighborhood, been worked out yet? And what is the timetable for development of their property?
Yeah, if there were problems in the past, I don't see them today. I found both of the gentlemen to be more than anxious to work with the community. In fact, it's some of their land. It's their land that we're looking to purchase for our West Side Safety Center, and they've been discussing that at a reasonable rate for the community, if I can put it in that regard. The primary problem has been the cities in this basis is that it's taken us a long time to get the figures for the impact fees for development and for the developers to be able to come in, and the landowners, the Woodmans, and the rest of this. Now that it's going to be the end of January before they have a handle on what their actual costs are going to be because of snafus, so to speak, within the city, and the people that have been working outside that we've turned this over to get the figures from. So it's being worked on. Those will be figured out in the very, very near future, and that development will be going ahead.
Should it be going ahead in 2005?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Now that's one word answer that I can be really sure of.
Okay. Other West Side development besides Connery and Fedler? As you're well aware, there's other homesteads or farmsteads that are contemplated for development besides Connery and Fedler, and other ones that are already within the West Side neighborhood plan. What is their timetable, and what can we expect to occur and when?
Well, one of the areas, and of course this goes back a while, it's been since I took office, and I'll preface it in this regard, looking to growth within this community is one thing. Looking to providing controlled quality growth is another thing. We went into and initiated back in February of this year, I believe, an area that growth was to become looked at very seriously. We have gone into a phasing program for residential, some of these things, and we're looking at the quality of growth being done on a slow, deliberate basis when it comes to the residential. When it comes to the commercial retail, I'm going to ask you to just dream. What does this community need? What do the people of this community need so that they don't have to run into the city of Madison, east side or west side, for every time they want to go buy a pair of shoes or buy a suit or buy a lady's dress or whatever it may be? There's a great need for this type of good quality commercial. I can envision a theater. I can envision a good quality hotel. I can envision expansion of just about anything you can think of on a quality level. Two things enter into talking with businesses to come. Number one, is there enough traffic within the area, customer traffic I'm speaking of, to warrant their considering opening an establishment? Second question, maybe not in that order, is what is the economic base of the people that will be shopping there? In other words, how many dollars are being spent So I think if we can control the growth here and provide that quality retail so that our citizens can shop Sun Prairie to get what they need at good quality merchandise and not have to travel into Madison, is going to be a godsend. It's going to be an energy saver when it comes to gas. It's going to be a time saver. So those are some of the things that I experienced. There are other things that are in the mix that I'm not at liberty to talk about at this time that will be made, announcements will be made in the very near future of some very important things that will be coming out here to Sun Prairie.
Excuse me, let me play devil's advocate for a minute, Dave. There are those that would argue that there's a shopping bonanza approximately 5 minutes from Sun Prairie's borders. Kohl's, Easttown, Marcus Theaters, all the things you mentioned too are already within 5 minutes of Sun Prairie.
Right.
These same people would argue they moved to Sun Prairie because it was different than Madison, and people like you want to make it more like Madison.
Well,
How do you respond to those that say we've already got Easttown, we don't need to turn
I
to
asked
Sun
them where
Prairie?
do they shop, because studies have been done. Let's say, and talking with Mr. Woodman as an example, his busiest store currently is the Easttown, or East Side Woodman's. And he realizes that that's going to drop off considerably when he builds in Sun Prairie, if he builds here. Because such a large percentage of his customers come from Sun Prairie. And it would afford them saving time, shopping locally. There is, at least in my perspective of Easttown, Westtown, and it may only be my own thoughts, but if I'm out and looking for a suit or something to this nature, the quality of merchandise, there's a little different quality of merchandise, West Side versus East Side. Price isn't any different, but the quality of merchandise seems to me to be a little bit different. And that's why I keep utilizing the two words, quality retail. And that is, I think, is the key when I talk about quality. I don't necessarily mean we need another, whatever it may be, XYZ store to fill the needs. I want quality retail that will fill the needs of the people in the community without having to travel.
Now let's, excuse me, let's talk about the Highway 151 interchange. Our problems with Metropolitan Planning Organization worked out, and when will the project begin? Also, what does it entail, and what is the city's financial contribution going to be to the interchange project?
Okay. The first part of your question is working out with the MPO. For those that may not know, the MPO is the Metropolitan Planning Organization. That is a committee that was set up by the governor that supervises the expenditures of federal dollars for various road projects and so forth. A little over a year ago or so, went in expecting that 151, the interchange, would be let last fall actually, and that construction would be starting in the spring of this year, 2004. Right. However, the Metropolitan Planning Organization needed to have some more studies done on traffic and traffic controls and things of this nature, even though we had jumped through many hoops. And the organization as it is set up by Madison representatives, and City Council and so on, one representative from the Department of Transportation. The county executive appoints a number of folks to that operation. So we had a very trying time a year and a half ago with the Metropolitan Planning Organization. But we lost a year. But we did, through the conscientious work of providing what was necessary and pointing out that really we had just been brought in to their jurisdiction, we did prevail, and they approved the release of the federal funds for the project as it stands. We also, and I've had an opportunity to write to Governor Doyle and pointed out the growth within the city of Sun Prairie and other cities such as Stoughton and so forth, is that we needed to have better representation on that committee, and he responded and said yes, and that we will be appointing another representative, and that will represent the communities such as Sun Prairie, Stoughton, and some of the others. As far as the cost of the city, to the city, on the interchange in this work, all of these figures really have not been worked out yet. So much is involved in what I talked about before, was the impact fees the developers are paying through the impact fees for this, as well as the county for some of the reconstruction of County Trunk C. And so when it comes down to what is the city's overall share, I can't give you a hard dollar figure. I can give you an estimate, but
Can
that's...
you give me a soft dollar figure?
A soft dollar figure, give or take, let's say $1 million up or down, after everything is written out. And I don't think it'll be that much, because the impact fees are going to have a great deal to do with this, and the county participation as well.
On the Highway C.
On the Highway C and the interchange.
So you think the combined city contribution, after all the impact fees are subtracted, and the state pays all of what it's going to pay, you think the city contribution to both those projects will be in the neighborhood of $1 million or less?
Probably in that regard, from the County Trunk C, all the way on up to 19 and the rest of it. That isn't to say that some of the other areas are not impacted as well. Connecting streets, things of this nature,
Right.
Again, will have impact fees. But one thing that I want to see happen, and I'm sure you do as well, Don, you recall we put in a west side interceptor
Right.
on that farther location, and the city needs to recapture the costs that have gone in, and we can recapture these costs through the development of this area and take again that burden away from the taxpayers paying that, which it's been on the books for some time, and it should be. That's one of the reasons I want to see this move forward.
West Side Emergency Service Building. When will work begin? What services will it have, and how much will it cost, and why is it taking so long to get it done?
Yes. Why is it taking so long to get? I'll start in that one. Why is it taking so long to get? First and foremost, we in the city have not purchased the land at this point. Why? Impact fees, working with various engineers to finally get the layouts of the roads, the diameters, the circumference of the circle, the amount of land that's going to be necessary, and so we can get title to it, first and foremost. And then, secondly, in the basis, what is it going to contain? To begin with, it will be constructed to be able to be expanded. To begin with, there will be fire units, probably 2 trucks, a 2-man pumper, and a larger unit as well out there. It will be built with accommodations for a minimum of 2 bays for the fire and minimum of 1 bay for the EMS. Now these are double or triple depth so that they can be stacked. It will have in the facility, it'll have some bed space, some kitchen facility. EMS staff is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
How about fire department?
Fire department at this time, with working with the volunteers, there will be the trucks, there'll be the turnout gear, and they're working on the response personnel for the west side. Doubt that it will be staffed on a 24/7 basis under volunteers, but there will be quick response times, and that's why I mentioned a 2-man pumper, as well as the 2 firefighters can be on call, go out and start moving and be able to address a fire situation.
So it'll be basically the same kind of response time that we have on the existing facility downtown. There isn't
Yes.
going to be staff there on a regular basis.
Not
to
on a
respond
regular
from that
basis,
station.
and there probably will be some, but very limited at this point in time, ability for police department to stop in, desk,
Okay, yeah.
something to this nature, but not a full-blown staff. Eventually down the road, and as the city progresses over the next 15, 20 years or so, I can see that there will be probably a build-out of that area. There probably will be possibility, let's say, of moving records to that area, to moving the 911 service call center into that area, freeing up some of the city hall existence for expansion without having to go to a 3-story building. And I
One
can
of your favorite subjects.
one of my favorite subjects, yes, yeah. But I can see also on that west side, for immediate construction, is to provide some area for Parks Department and for some parks programs to be held. Parks Department does not have the ability to put on some of the programs that they need. They just don't have the space. We currently are renting space from the Colonial Club for some of the parks programs on the east. This would be affording within a city facility and save rental space and provide some additional assistance to Parks and Rec on the west side and for the community on the west side of the community or west side of the city.
You're on the fire safety board. I believe it's made up of the mayors and town chairmen.
Correct.
The projections are within the next 10 years or so, Sun Prairie will be hovering around 40,000 if it hasn't reached 40,000 by 2015, 2020.
10 years might be a little bit exact.
At least by the 2020
10 years,
timetable.
I can foresee that if we're at 24,000 now, there's a very strong possibility that we'll be in the 32 to maybe up to 35,000. The projection for the 40,000 goes to the 15, 18-year time.
Okay.
But projections have not, when it comes to population growth, have not been very accurate
No,
in
we've
the
usually
past.
been higher than what the population
Yes.
projections have been in the past.
Right.
The reason I asked the question is, do you think we're going to be able to provide volunteer fire service without 24/7 police protection out of basically a downtown operation without precincts in a city of 35, 40,000 people? Do you think that's really practical?
Probably not. And that's why I said the West Side Safety Center will be designed, but not constructed, but will be designed for future expansion to accommodate some of these things. Police records, the dispatch services, things of this nature. So, no. There again, it goes back to my original. This is all part of budgeting and looking under capital improvement programs and trying to look down the road and gaze into the crystal ball and to make a somewhat educated guess but to be able to try and plan for these things.
Okay, fair enough. All the aforementioned that we've been talking about are symbolic of Sun Prairie's rapid growth, as some like to allude to, the fastest growing city in the state of Wisconsin.
Well, we lost that.
We lost that title?
Yeah, we lost that title, I'm not unhappy to say. I believe now it's the community of Hudson, Wisconsin, in the northwest, just on the east side of the Mississippi.
Right.
Much smaller population, but I'm happy to get rid of that.
Are we still the fastest growing city over 10,000 in the state of Wisconsin?
Probably, yes.
Okay. In any event, what's your view on the city's growth over the past 10 years and its impact, or the impact that it's had on this city and its population?
Well, Don, I'm going to give you some credit. You were there, as I was, at a very critical time. Various growth spurts. I saw the first growth spurt back when I moved here in '65. I served first in the city council in '68, and that was the first time that the council put together a long-range program of how we would be doing in 1988 to 1990. When I got back onto the city council, it was ironic how close those projections were. And we'd gone through a number of growth spurts at that time. Back in '65 or so, it was about 3,200 people, and then so on. But you were on the council, I was on the council, and the one thing I will say, and I think that everybody can attest to, is that in our own way, we've tried over the years to plan for the growth and to provide the capabilities of the city services to cope with the growth. So we knew growth was going to be inevitable just because of our geographic location to the city of Madison, our highway systems, Dane County Airport, all of these things enter into the factor.
We just didn't think we'd be quite as popular as what we were.
No, and that's exactly what I was going to say. We didn't anticipate strong enough how popular we were going to be. But that still hasn't deterred or put a negative impact on it. Through a lot of hard work and forethought, for the most part, we have kept up and been ahead of the growth. We've had to put some moratoriums on, certainly. But I think that we're on the right track here in the community.
Are you comfortable with the bridles, so to speak, that have been placed by the city council through the recommendations of staff on how to deal with growth in the future? The phasing plan, so to speak?
The phasing plan, yes, but I think the phasing plan needs to have some modifications to it. The phasing plan, again, for those viewing primarily, is on residential. And certain types of residential would have a higher priority than other types of residential. Apartments may not be the most high or the highest on the list, things of this nature. Again, the phasing, because of so many things with commercial, I don't really want to see the phasing on the commercial. I want to see controls on the commercial. I want to see controls on the site designs. I want to see controls on the buildings themselves. I want them to fit into the neighborhoods. I want to fit into the plans that are being designed. But I want to be able to recapture the costs that the dollars that have been already spent by the city, such as on the west side interceptor sewer. And we can only do that as growth occurs in that area. So phasing, yeah, I'm in favor of some of it. I think it's not necessarily in its final stage or final print. It's in a draft form. It needs to be looked at again yet.
Let me paint a picture for you about growth, and you tell me where I go wrong or what's wrong with the picture that I'm drawing.
All right.
Think of what the streets in this community looked like 20 years ago. Think of what City Hall looked like. Think of what the library looked like. Think of what the internal infrastructure in the older part of the city was in terms of storm sewers, sidewalks, etc. And look at what it is today and tell me without the significant growth that the city's had in the last 10, 15 years, whether those things would have been possible to accomplish.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And we've all gone through that stage, you and I. Stormwater, non-existent. That's come about in good control in just the past 15 years, I'd say. The other things, the streets. When I got on city council back in '85, my goodness,
In pretty bad shape, weren't they?
we didn't have a street maintenance program.
No.
There wasn't any. They were in terrible shape. Today, not only new construction of streets or reconstruction of streets, but there is a maintenance program that's set up, and you were involved in that as well.
How many sidewalks did we have in this? Of course, some people would say that was good.
Well, that's true. We had virtually no sidewalks. The sidewalks then that were initiated back then started on collector streets, streets to parks, streets to schools, and over the time it's been carried out on that basis. But growth has provided this. Growth of business as well as residential adds the dollars to the tax base that affords the community to do the things and provide the services for those that live here now and will be here in the future.
So I guess it isn't all as bad as some people
Not
would
always.
profess it to be.
Not always, not always. It has a very good side to it, really, if it's good quality controlled.
Speaking of growth, the west side is not the only area of growth going on. Talk for a few minutes, excuse me, about the downtown and east side expansion going on in the city, and I believe you brought some maps you'd like to allude to, Your Honor.
I did. These,
All right, be
in
my
fact,
guest.
some of these were just presented Monday night at the Planning Commission. This is the latest vision, I guess, of the downtown vision. This overall, and I'll try to pick out a few things so that people can get an idea. This is Main Street to the east, and, excuse me. This is Market Street. This is City Hall. This is the Main Street area going this way. Angel Park on the far side. Cannery Square, which is the old building, which is not, it's still sitting there. This is the new area of buildup from the old, Porcelain Company, the old American Legion Hall, the old bars and so forth that were downtown, and now the small city plaza, I won't say park. This is Market Street, heading down to Angel Park. Along here is the railroad track. Looking at perhaps a transit station here with the railroad in the future. This is the old granary. Still a good-looking building. This is Linrood Drive coming in. Lane Street, this is the Main Street stores and store frontage. Bristol Street, this is the site of the new American Legion. This is the triangular area down here, which this next spring will be dedicated as Heroes Park and flags. But now that's the overall view. Some of the other things that perhaps, I guess it's going to fall, to address now some of the new concepts. Again, to this area here, this is the kind of the Market Street corridor. This is the new development area called Cannery Square, City Hall over here. The outline in orange are areas for development for high priority. That includes this area over here and down through here. The others, outlined in red, are medium priority, looking at future development down in this section. Here the blue is of the lowest priority. This is still occupied and will probably be so for about the next 8 to 10 years. On this site location now, the old Royal Printing Company is in this area for you folks. This is going to be demolished. Starting in the spring, there will be a new facility, a new building here. It'll be a family diner, bakery, complementing the Cannery Square area. And you're going to see some changes coming in to the alleyway behind the Main Street businesses over here. And I'm going to jump over here a little bit, again to point out, this is the Cannery Square area, the plaza, Main Street, the businesses, the new restaurant facility, and so on down here. This is the alleyway. Will be restructured. The backs of the existing buildings will work with the businesses there so that this will be cleaned up. Additional parking put in for their tenants as well. There's a couple drawings that I'll show you in a moment that are being looked at to provide entrance to the backs of these buildings. Additional public parking throughout here. Extending this over, there's the Historical Museum. This is Lane Street. Lane Street to come all the way through eventually, right over to Church and Market Street here. Again, King Street, but all of this for beautification. The old City Hall. Getting into some of the design work. Well, before we do that, I guess this is what kind of just broken down into what I just talked about, the redevelopment phases, the opportunity districts. The area here that I talked about is in the lowest priority, is right in through this section. This is the Washington Mills area, and bringing it back to the city garage that you alluded to before, Don, is that we just within a number of years ago, constructed this facility. It is a beautiful facility. It fits, but it doesn't fit. And it has use, and we're going to find tenants or buyers eventually for that site facility. These are some of the thought drawings for the back of the Main Street buildings there, to come in, have their parking spots, perhaps some ramped areas, entrances in. We might have to change a few ordinances to allow for tables out here in the summer with umbrellas and have some outside dining, some of these things. The Cannery Square building being looked at fast and furious. And then looking at perhaps some different impressions for the downtown signage. This, of course, is the takeoff of the City Hall, and looking at perhaps parking signs, downtown sun, directions to City Hall, Historic Museum, Cannery Square, and so forth. Strictly conceptual, but things that we're looking at this point in time. It's an exciting time in this community. We've got this development on the west side over here. We've got the east side going over here. And then the growth is, people are coming in. They want to look at an established business in Sun Prairie.
What will your priorities be in a second term if you're reelected?
To see all of these things that I've been working on for years, not just as mayor, come to fruition. I was on the council as you were back in 93, 94, 95, when the expansion of 151 and our thought concept of presenting to the Department of Transportation the interchange back then. So it's taken, gosh, from 93 to 2004, and finally it'll start in 2005. So I want to see that come to fruition. I want to see, as I continually talk about, the quality commercial retail growth, which will add to the tax base, pay off some of the West Side Interceptor costs that the city has been bearing, and bring us to, again, a more stable financial basis.
The West Side Plan you alluded to, you're right, it's the culmination of perhaps efforts sometimes challenging, as Joanne Orphan would allude to, would I'm sure echo, trying to bring a whole host of different property owners with a whole host of different agendas
Yes.
together with a common goal. Do you think all those differences between those various property owners with their different agendas has really been accomplished, and are we really going to be able to accomplish the vision that Paris Rutherford from RTKL and the people that attended those community sessions that the West Side Plan was talked about? Is that in reality really a practical
Yes.
expectation?
Yes, it is. For the most part, the landowners, the developers are trying now to work together. Has there been dissension? Has there been feet dragging? Absolutely. Have I been a small part of helping in that regard? I'd like to think so. If nothing else, perhaps a calming influence, sitting at the table with a few adversaries and trying to project the best interests of not only their own interests, but that of the community, and bringing it to a consensus. Do they agree on every issue 100%? Absolutely not. But for the most part, things are working well. They really are, and moving forward well.
How important of a priority is it to you to have a significant entryway at both the east and west entrance to the city that we can be proud of, replacing what's there now on both the east and west end, and is that really going to happen in the next few years?
Oh, I would think so. And you got to remember, on the west side, we've got a couple major entryways. We've got Highway 19 coming in. We've got Highway 151 coming in. Years ago, we fought, of course, to provide a green space between the city of Madison and Sun Prairie. And if you recall, it started out as a mile.
Right.
It got down to a quarter mile, and I think today we have a bike path. We have a bike path separation. But we are in a position with this development on the west side to make it a substantial dividing line to the eye as people driving by and can see it. We can make it a good entryway, and will spell out that this is Sun Prairie and you are not in Madison. And we can do that on the north side as well, on Windsor Street or Highway 19. The Windham Hills area is already starting to have a good focus point to it from the folks coming in from that area. From the east side, absolutely, that can be accomplished. I would like to work closer with the county executive in helping to spur the sale of that property so that they would join us in cooperation of building a single facility.
For sale for the right price.
For the right price, perhaps, absolutely.
I think that's probably the issue on the west side as you enter on the Main Street too.
Oh,
with
certainly.
the Brooks property and the
Certainly.
Chase Lumber and the existing
Certainly.
uses that are there that have served this city well over the years, but I submit if you want that picture to become a reality,
Oh, yeah.
you got to put your money where your mouth is.
Absolutely, and it's just so much going on. You know, just this past week, I had the opportunity to be working with Jerry Durr, who is the town chairman at the town of Bristol. And after at least 10 years of talking about it, we at least have presented a final draft to the respective city council and to their town board of reaching an agreement between the city and the town for growth and how growth will be contained or how it will not be contained. And it'll work to the benefit of both of our communities. It's part of the growth. We won't be pitted one against the other by development interests, land sale interests, things of this nature. We'll be working hand in hand in that. We can look at containing explosions of rural development, things of that nature, which none of us really want to see happen. We want to have, again, good quality planned growth. But that one is going to come to fruition, and that I really am looking forward to this. In January, hopefully we will sit down as joint bodies and iron out a few differences that perhaps may arise. Maybe there won't be any. But then by March, to have this ratified and to be put into effect. The first one we did, you were part of as well, and that being the town of Windsor. And that has stood up for many, many years, and it's been beneficial to both our government entities.
You point these things out in a casual way, but for those who don't know, accomplishing this is no small accomplishment. As you alluded to, the city of Sun Prairie has had an ongoing intergovernmental agreement with the town of Windsor for upwards of 10 years, and it's created a harmonious work-together relationship with regard to their boundaries and ours, to ensuring that we had mutual agreement with regard to growth on both sides of the road.
Yes.
It's been more challenging trying to forge intergovernmental agreements with the town of Sun Prairie, the town of Burke, and the town of Bristol. So, pardon my skepticism, with the town of Bristol, a land use agreement was on the Planning Commission agenda for, I think, 7 or 8 years before it was finally pulled off. So I guess when the ink is dry, we'll see.
Come March, and I think that'll be a very red letter day. I've been in discussions, as I said, with other government entities. Town of Sun Prairie, we're in communications as well on an ongoing basis, as is with the town of Burke. Kevin Viney, the town chair there, and Lyle in Sun Prairie.
Lyle Updike.
Yes, and excuse me. But in the past, towns were very suspicious of cities, Madison particularly, but Sun Prairie also as well. And I believe the last 2 years in my office term have soothed the ruffled feathers, and we're moving forward very amiably.
Before we leave people with the impression that everything's all hunky-dory between the city of Sun Prairie and the surrounding townships, would you agree with the statement that someone made to me a few years ago, that there comes a time when the differences between townships and cities are just the innate differences between townships and cities, and each party has to do what it has to do?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Town government is a government entity that has to be recognized and listened to. Each town has a different objective and yet in many instances they're all the same. And you have to try and see if there are mutual areas within what the township, a specific township, is trying to foresee for themselves in the near and the far future, and how the city of Sun Prairie can help or hinder that process. Part of it is dealing with growth, annexation, expanding the community, and in looking at the wants and the needs of the townships and trying to work out differences that become the needs and the wants of the city of Sun Prairie, as an example, and trying to find some mutual meeting points so that we can move forward.
But
it isn't easy. It isn't always easy, no.
There does come a time, however,
Oh, yes. And
when the differences are irreconcilable and each party has to do what it has to do.
it has to do. But if it can be reached on an amiable basis, all the better. But if not, each party does understand, at least, they may not agree, but they understand that what the need is and the response that has to be taken.
Lastly, Your Honor, you have an opponent in the upcoming election. Tell our viewers why residents should vote for you rather than the at least one announced opponent you have, Joe Chase, in this upcoming election.
Well, the only thing I've got to say, I guess, on that as to why, if people can see what I have done in the past 2 years in trying to help and lead the direction of the city, it's basically going to be my ongoing program for the next 2 years. I believe I've got a fairly good background in order to meet the challenges here and dealing with other entities, no matter what level they be on, whether it be on state or national levels. I've gotten to know the ropes. I've gotten to know my way around fairly well and know who to talk to that can be beneficial. And I just think that I have been a good representative image of the city of Sun Prairie whenever I'm out and about, not only here, but at various meetings in other communities and other locales. I feel that I represent the city of Sun Prairie, at least in the physical stature, with respect and dignity that this community should receive. And I certainly feel that I've got the experience necessary to continue on with the job.
Before I let you go, it sounds what you've laid out over the last hour and a half or so is a full-time agenda for a part-time mayor.
Yes.
Does Sun Prairie need a full-time mayor, as you've been accused of promoting?
Well, let's put it in this context. So, I'm a realtor. I'm a broker associate. This past year, I had about a quarter of a side. My neighbors wanted to sell their home. They were moving into a condo. I didn't even have the time to have the listing. I had to turn that over to another realtor. So it's I haven't made a great deal of money in real estate in the past 2 years by any means. You can put in as much time or as little time in this job as you want to. With myself, I feel that I'm going to put in as much time as possible. I will average, oh goodness, these are slow times, probably down to about 30 hours a week now.
Does that include meeting time?
Yeah, this week, because we only had meetings on Monday and Tuesday nights. During the day, I've been at meetings Monday and Tuesday and today as well. So this week will only be about 30 hours because office is closed on Thursday and Friday. Average during the year, I'm going to guess, is probably, I would average out between 50, 55, 60 hours a week in the job.
I think I come back to the question. Looks like we've, between you and Joanne Orphan, it looks like you've got a full dinner on your plate. Does Sun Prairie need a full-time mayor? Or a mayor that's paid for putting in full-time hours?
Well, I know what the salary was. For those folks that don't know, the mayor's salary is $15,000 a year. And that figures out, I don't know what it does figure out to.
About $300 a week.
Perhaps in that regard. I'm trying to put it into an hourly basis. Let's say it's 50 hours a week.
I'm not sure you'd meet the state's minimum wage
Yeah, I
law if
probably
you did
fall
that.
under the minimum wage standard. The city has a very qualified and efficient staff. We work together well. The only other form of government, and one that I don't really profess to really siding with, is city manager. And with city manager, you don't have a mayor. You've got a limited council. With city administrator, takes an awful lot of the workload off of the mayor's job. But that's why the mayor can be as involved as they wish to be. And it's my preference to be as involved so that I'm there and to know what's going on and to be perhaps another guiding force for the city council. To help try and keep things in perspective. I work very closely with Pat. I work very closely with Paul Everett, the city attorney, with Bill Burns, finance. Of course, planning department as well. We don't always necessarily agree. And I made that quite clear and apparent when I first went in, that I didn't particularly care for the specific direction that seemed to be, the city seemed to be going in. And I haven't had to necessarily get overly involved in that. I think enough was said to begin with. General reminders to be placed at time to time, and I'm not averse to doing that. I think direction, let me perhaps in summarying up and can put it in the best context. Following the first year, I had a number of the city employees say, we're awfully glad that you're here, that you spend so much time. You've provided additional direction that we felt we needed. So I think I can sum it up in that regard.
Should the mayor be compensated for that time?
In the future, the mayor will have to be compensated for that time, yes.
Can't expect to keep getting full-time mayors for part-time salaries, can you?
No, you can't.
How long ago how far away do you think that is? That this community is ready for that?
Oh, I think that
maybe the community is ready for it now.
I think the
know.
community is ready for it now. They don't know it. I think that they're going to have a better handle on it even a year from now as we speak, and definitely by the end of the next 2-year term, with the changes, with the growth, with the development, and with the quality that comes forth, they're going to see the need for it. I think it'll be visualized in their minds. So I'm not out there hammering for it, but it'll come. It'll come.
Folks, once again, Merry Christmas and happy holidays to all of you. Sorry for my fading voice today. And Your Honor, thank you for being a difference
Thank you,
maker
Don,
in
and a
Sun
very
Prairie.
Merry Christmas to you,
Thank you,
and
you
to
too,
each
sir.
one of the citizens in Sun Prairie. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.